Hey everyone, welcome to our online class, our online lecture. Today we're going to look at political parties. And if you're in the OpenStax textbook, I think this is chapter 9. That sounds right. We'll go with 9. If you're looking at another textbook, well, that'll probably be a different chapter. So today we're looking at political parties, the good and bad of democratic government. So I've got my third cup of coffee for the day, so I'm ready to get started. So what are we going to look at in this chapter? And this chapter will probably be split up into 2 or 3 videos, so it'll be a couple of different uploads. We're going to look at how political parties fit within the Constitution. If you've been in my class long enough, you know that I like to bring things back to the Constitution as much as I can. We're going to look at how political parties relate to interest groups. One way to understand political parties is by comparing them to other political entities. And we're going to look at the question of what political parties actually do. We're going to look at that. The other 2 things we're going to look at, third party, what we call minor parties. Where do they fit into this conversation? And then the last thing we're going to look at is why don't Americans care for their political parties? I mean, Americans love to party. New Year's Eve, Times Square. Americans love a good party, except when it comes to political parties. And I should point out, what we're looking at in this chapter is not so much what the political parties believe in. This is not a conversation yet about what the Democratic platform is or the Republican platform is. This is more of a general conversation that really applies to all American political parties. And we should also point out political parties in other countries operate differently than ours. So this is just a United States focused conversation that I'm having with you through a screen, although you can't really respond to me. So I don't know if it's a conversation. Rambling over. So for number 1, how do political parties fit within the Constitution? Well, the best and easiest way to understand political parties is to first provide a bit of a definition. When we talk about political parties, what we are talking about are organized groups that attempt to win elections so that they can control government and determine public policy. And all 3 of those elements are important. Winning elections, controlling government, determining public policy, and we'll get into that. As far as the constitutional aspect of it, you can find political parties in the First Amendment. Your freedom of association, your right to gather in groups politically to say you want to change the government, to seek a redress of your grievances. Your right to form a political party is protected by the First Amendment. So number 2, how do political parties relate to interest groups? And so this conversation is going to make sense, I hope, whether you've looked at the interest group chapter or you haven't. And that really does depend on which semester this is and how and what order I decide to teach things in right now. For 2020, we've already discussed interest groups. If you're looking at this in 2021 or 2025, who knows whether I've talked about this or not. So just briefly. Interest groups and political parties are very similar in some key ways. First, they both are grounded in that First Amendment right. Remember, in the Federalist Papers, James Madison basically acknowledged you cannot have democratic government without having factions form. Those factions can exist as either political parties or as interest groups, but it's natural to form them, and the First Amendment provides protection for both. Another similarity is that they allow you, the public, to participate in the political policy-making process, whether it's advocating for one or two issues under an interest group or trying to affect a lot of issues under a political party. They are ways for you to get involved and make your voice heard. Number 3, both interest groups and political parties are major factors in electoral politics. And what I mean by that is you cannot have an advanced industrialized democracy of our size that does as many things as it does, with also having things like federalism and free will and freedom of choice, without having these organizing groups. These organizing groups really do the bulk of the work for elections. And another aspect of interest groups and political parties that make them similar to each other is that they work together to achieve their goals. Interest groups and political parties, I always say, are like siblings. One may have one type of life, another sibling may have another type of life, but they can work together to plan their parents' 25th wedding anniversary or that 60th birthday party for their mom or their dad. They're siblings. They work together. They have similar DNA, but often they are very different in outcomes. So I hope that makes sense. In terms of differences, there's a lot of differences between interest groups and political parties. The first big one is that interest groups have a very narrow focus. If you're an education interest group, you only care about education issues, standardized testing, teacher pay, making sure schools provide enough funding. Education interest groups don't have to care about tourism or climate change. They don't have to care about questions about health insurance. Education interest groups only care about education-related issues. Political parties have to be very broad. Political parties have to care about a little bit of everything. If you ever go on a party platform, and you really should go look at party platforms, they have opinions and issue positions on everything. On the role of the United States in Middle Eastern foreign policy, on patriotism, on trade in the Americas, with Latin America, South America. They have opinions on legalizing drugs. They have opinions on climate change. They have opinions on which doctor is the best doctor. And yes, that is a Doctor Who reference, and the answer is the 10th Doctor. But political parties have to have opinions on everything. Another difference between interest groups and political parties. Interest groups just want to influence government. They just want to be able to be that power behind the throne, if you will. Just to say, I care about this issue and this is what I want you to do. Political parties want to actually control government. They want to be the ones in charge. I just noticed a typo. Control government. I should probably go back and fix that, but I'm not going to. But it's one control on the screen. Interest groups will endorse political candidates. So they will say they support this candidate, they oppose this candidate. Interest groups may even run campaign ads to support or oppose a candidate. Political parties actually run the candidates. When you go to the ballot box and you vote for in the presidential election, you will see the candidates with an R or a D or an L or a G next to their names. That is running the candidates. When you're running for political office in a partisan election, you're running under a political banner. You may rely on interest groups for endorsements, for campaign donations, but those interest groups' names will never show up on the ballot. And then the last difference, and I think this might be the last aspect of this video, is that interest groups are numerous. There are thousands of interest groups out there that exist at the local level, the state level, the national level. There are international interest groups. There's only a few major political parties here in the United States. There's Republicans, there's Democrats, there's Libertarians, there's the Green Party, and then there's a lot of small minor parties that really don't ever win anything, or really, for lack of a better word, they don't really matter that much. So there's a lot fewer political parties as compared to the large number of interest groups that exist. So this covers the first 2 points. Where do political parties fit into the Constitution, and how political parties differ from interest groups. In the next video, I will tackle what political parties actually do. And maybe if there's time, I'll also tackle the issue with third parties and why third parties have so much trouble being successful. I hope this made sense. I hope you understand it. Of course, if you have any questions, feel free to email me. Feel free to reach out and get in touch with me, Google Hangouts, or through email, or through Blackboard. And I'm here to help, and have a great day.